the Visage feels like it should have a little bit more presence, like up against all this healing. That does mean there's more HP to burn through and more soul assumption charges to easily build up because the enemy team will keep committing because they feel confident. So early on, that might lead to maybe a little bit more trading back and forth there for KP. Might have some more activity depending on how well Q plays here as well. But I do agree with your points there, Aries. Like, as long as Polaris plays to this tempo, gets their level 6s up, gets that early dominator out on force and start running around, forcing these fights into objectives. Talon's lineup, once it starved to farm, it can be pretty hard to bounce back with a Morphling in, trying to farm up with an Ember who's going to want something like BKB Axe in this game down the line. There might not be enough room to farm that up, along with KP. Visage tends to enjoy itemization a lot. He's very open to itemization as well. We've seen a lot of build-ups with the Shard, with the Ags, with damage focus, depending on how the game goes. So it's shrinking that map quick for Polaris can easily make it awkward for Talon to try to scale.
And do we think that's going to be a concern though for Polaris? Maybe the scaling on Talon, because Morphling late game, Ember late game, if they're lacking some control, those heroes can really be a big issue. So do you feel like that's kind of something that Polaris have to keep in the back of their minds?
Somewhat, I think. You have really good scaling on the Jug. Beastmaster gets some insane talents, especially in his Roar cooldown towards late game. So you've always got great presence. Of course, the Winter's Curse is always big in these team fights. But your DP kind of tapers off a little bit more. The survivability can be counteracted. And I think that might be the big concern. Down the line towards late game, for the core-to-core matchup, this is the one issue with Jug here, right? Like, you are sort of reliant on Omni Slash. I mean, Blade Fury gets a good mid-game spike. But down the line, when you are facing up against these big hitting force, it can be a lot more durable. Omni Slash is your ace up your sleeve. It gives you invulnerability, it gives you free damage, and its cooldown is always massive. It's always 2 minutes, 10 seconds. So it can make the timing of these engagements a little bit more awkward for the Jug. Even if you itemize for, say, the Ags, it's not the longest there. And there are ways for Talon to kind of work around that. So we'll have to see. I feel like Polaris is best towards mid game, towards late game. It kind of becomes almost even. Just depends on execution.
I mean, that's what could we be asking for, John? We have a game that comes down to execution. It's not off the back of like a draft outplay. So this is going to put us in an incredible spot here for our game one. Of course, it is our only series of the night. Boom. They've already taken one of those qualifying spots.
Ooh,
this top lane, yeah, Natsumi's under the pump. Q's gotta be... Oh, Q gets the kill, actually. The Marcy had enough right-click damage. I didn't think he'd be able to secure the kill with the Blade Fury, but in the end, Talon find first blood, but it does come at the cost of Marcy's life.
I don't think you mind too much. KP gets some EXP, some much-needed gold for his part on the Visage. Natsumi kind of cut off from the creep wave, and this is something that tends to get a little bit awkward for Jug. That uptime on Blade Fury isn't that great at level 1. Even at level 2, it's not amazing. It only feels decent enough once you max it out. Level 3, maybe a little bit more usable. So there's a lot of openings for Talon to be aggressive, and not too much AU can do. Like, yes, you can spit around, get the Splinter Blast. They are getting good damage onto KP, but you can just TP away.
Nice read as well. As soon as AU was able to pick up that level 2, they got aggressive straight away. Because this is kind of the thing about the Visage. Your level 1 is a huge spike in damage. But once the enemy team starts to get their own levels, then the Visage is going to be under threat. But we should have a bit of a break in action up top. Let's take a look at how the other side lane is shaping up for the moment. Of course, 23 Savage on his ever so comfortable Morphling. Are we expecting him to have a pretty good lane down bottom?
Not the freest lane. You're already seeing a little bit of a struggle in the CS, but not too bad. Kind of keeping up with Natsumi. Still a much better lane for Force to play with. It's not a lane where you're forced to go Axis, although he does go for it at level 2 here with 1 point in the Boris and 1 point in the Axis. But you can apply some decent aggression. Savage gonna have to eat through a lot of tangos, it feels like here, already out of regen on both of the heroes in lane. And you can't really line up for too much aggression for Hyde. The Beastmaster and the Tiny are fairly tanky, so even if you do manage to somehow find a cookie setup, these heroes aren't going to be easy to burst down with this duo. So it's going to be a lot more passive for them. They'll give it a shot onto Xavius, though.
It's a good chunk of damage at the moment with the level 2s from Talon. They're going to bring Xavius down relatively low. No Self to play with, but he does have plenty of tangos. What's your thoughts on the tree that we've been seeing a little bit more now from the Tiny, going for it at like level 1?
It's a good set of right-clicking trade. You do have decent enough move speed on the Tiny. You're only 5 movement speed lower than Hyde, so you can kind of walk up and harass. It doesn't feel amazing up against the dual ranges. You mentioned earlier on in the draft here, Aries. I mean, you can kind of space yourself out in talent to mitigate that risk that the Tiny does present here.
Q might be in a bit of trouble. Doesn't have a point in the rebound, so just going to try and do as much damage as he can onto AU before they secure with a kill. The KP's going to be loving life, though. Look at this. Lane completely shoved in. Doesn't have another hero here to soak the experience.
Yeah, just getting the solo levels. This is big for the Visage. I like how KP's built up. No points in Grave Chill. No need to chase. Just all in the damage and a little bit on that durability.
Oh. All right. It looks like they saw... Oh, yeah. Xavius is on his pulling shenanigans, so they were well aware of the Tiny being out of the lane.
And Xavius isn't getting this one for free either. Hyde's still on the chase, providing a lot of damage out. And Xavius does have at least 2 armor protection. The Tiny, without that grow, is pretty low on the physical resistance. So, gonna be a lot easier to chip away for Hyde. And overall, looking like a very even start for both sides. Q in trouble, though.
And once again, he's going to try and get KP in range for the rebound, but another kill for Natsumi to find, so looks like he's off to a pretty good start. Last hits are kind of struggling for the Juggernaut. But at least he's able to kind of supplement that in regards to the kills. And meanwhile, mid lane, though, it's looking pretty even. We got so much action in the side lanes that we haven't really been able to watch out, but this is just a farm fest, honestly, between Lelouch and Makoto. I say that, Lelouch might get a solo kill. Makoto playing with some one charges, so almost bring Ember down.
Yeah, very good chase out, very good use of the fortification from Lelouch as well, just to protect that one melee creep he had working that lane. Doesn't quite find a kill, but is still kind of set up. Is out of bottle charges, so not going to have as much mana to trade, and Makoto can always go for the TP back refill.
Bottom lane. Hyde? They're going to try and beat onto Savage, but I don't know, man. This guy is... You're not killing him with the stuns on cooldown. Savage is going to get... Okay, I thought he was going to wait for me, man. Savage, he knows the limits of this hero very well.
Yeah, he's just super comfy on it. Again, here we've seen him play a lot. Up top, though, they catch AU out here.
Not another support dying. What is going on? Q and KP is going to go for a TP out, and they will not have the damage, actually. Nice read from AU.
Bailing out. Bit of a longer cooldown in that level 1 dispose. So it does buy some space out. That's giving a lot of space out for Natsumi to catch up in that CS. You mentioned he was lacking. Doing great now on the Jug. Number 2 in terms of net worth here. And for Talon, 2 kills behind. Slight net worth lead for Polaris. Considering the pacing of these heroes, it does feel like a lot of that momentum for Talon's going to be riding on Mikado and maybe KP hitting that familiar spike that you mentioned earlier on there, Aries. So won't see if that's something they can play with. Lelouch already showing up mid. Does have level 6 with Exo. And Xavius is hanging around as well. Maybe could look for an opening, shove in a little bit, start to pressure onto the tier 1, but not going to go all in that yet.
Yeah, do you feel like the call for Polaris is maybe to use this Exo mid, or are you going to consider bringing Lelouch down bottom to try and get the tower? Hold that thought, because top lane. Yeah. Rebound movement speed. KP is going to be able to get out. Man, this guy moves fast with the rebound. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty cute combination, right? Like a Grave Chill plus rebound movement speed. It speeds up the Visage a massive way. Does allow you to run down and avoid that spin combination, even with the slows from the Winter Wyvern. You're starting to find that opening, though. Lelouch has the Exo pop, not really able to chip away at the tier 1. Does force Mikado onto the sidelines, but he's still feeling fairly healthy, although the full complement of Ghost does damage him bad.
They're going to go for Xavius, though. Look at Hyde. Really cute play with the cookie, but Xavius going to hold them back with the Avalanche. This is a huge victory, though, nonetheless. That is a exorcism that... honestly completely wasted. That is not enough damage. 160 onto the tower. You are not happy about that. Natsumi does get a kill though by the triangle and Omni Slash to secure it. So the Jug's off to an incredible start. 3-1-1. Yeah,
it's been a great ride for Natsumi so far. Somehow Savage is still finding a lot more out from his lane. You know, not finding as many kills himself, but he's gotten a lot of room down bot with all this movement.
Bedrock, I return.
At least Avius gets the haste away. High was able to step in with the cookie, hold him back. Meanwhile, top lane with the familiars, AU in a bit of trouble. That's that extra damage. It's only a little bit with the 1 point in the sidekick. It will come at a cost in Q. So 1-for-1 to trade, expending the life of the supports.
Bit of a back and forth. Does feel pretty good still for Natsumi to find. You know, you're building up in this jug, but the moment he dies, that's a pretty big streak to give away.
Oh, what? This is alright. I completely forgot about this. They've got the sidekick for the familiars. They got the cookie as well. Oh my lord. Why not just have multiple things to be able to help out with the familiars across the map?
And they've got pretty good ways of getting some long-range stuns with some cheeky plays with familiars. So going to be down to KP to try and micro. They're at the point though where Natsumi can kind of just clear out a few small camps, leveled 7 up. Working towards his Maelstrom, so his farming pace should kick up, but I think considering how much aggression Polaris is getting out, look at his clump up bot, Talon's avoiding pretty well. They're starting to focus their resources up top. Natsumi should be a bit cautious there, but backs off in the nick of time. Looks like a tier 1 for tier 1 trade. Just consider how much Savage is still getting though. Like this Morphling, number 1 net worth, again, had a little bit of back and forth in lane, but not under as much pressure. Not as many kills, but the farm is steady.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
I'd say that's a win though in the books for Talon. Like they tried to rotate down to catch Savage off guard, but the Observer Ward by the hard camp was able to scout out Polaris. So the fact that Talon are able to get a tower, and honestly, they're a lineup that you don't have like the Exo to really secure an early objective. You are playing with the Visage, which does make it a lot easier, and if the Morphling can get the right clicks going as well, but that's really nice now to just further enable 23 Savage's game, just opening up the map for him to get some more net worth. Makoto might be able to get a kill. He's out of mana, slides up in a couple of seconds. We'll see if the damage is going to be enough. Makoto still considering to chase. He's got no mana. Makoto! What's going on? Xavier gives him a well-deserved tip for that.
Oh, you shouldn't have.
Yeah, just gets a little bit too aggressive chasing behind. And doesn't quite have enough damage. Didn't have chains up as well to help control in that initial part of the fight. Does get punished. And another Exo is up. Lelouch can be able to line up for the mid. This should be a lot easier to push into with the rest of Polaris ganging up here.
Radiant structures are fortified.
See if they bring the numbers so to protect this tower on Talon. They do have a TP available on Q if he's going to look to join. Makoto's back alive as well. Even going to lay down the Mortimer. Well, alright, well, Xavier's just gone, so low health is going to be the Tiny. Lelouch is in a little bit of trouble as well, but he will have the Cold Embrace and the extra health coming back shortly.
Radiant's middle tower has been denied.
And get the deny off. Just a little bit of a back and forth, punishing Xavier for staying a little bit too long. But they still get the objective. Polaris starting to open up the map more. This should allow them to invade that bot jungle. Start to build up even further on Force. Great use of his dominated creep to just keep that push going. And this is the moment where Polaris starts to hit that early mid-game stride we were talking about there, Ares, right? Like, the Beastmaster is going to be able to help you push out. The Death Prophet's fairly tanky. You don't have any sort of early earn pickup here from Talon yet to handle that. And you're still kind of waiting for farm on Mikado. Doesn't have his Maelstrom up yet. Has started to lag behind from that one death down mid. All the while, Polaris are still building up a Natsumi. After he abandoned stop, he's also gotten a lot of space bot. Once his Maelstrom's up, the Jug can be quite the presence in taking these fights and just being more efficient in clearing out some camps and creep waves here.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
I think maybe for Polaris as well, it's going to kind of come down to, I think, the Exo cooldown and just the item from Force. Because he's not having the great... Well, it's a bit better of a time than KP, I suppose, on the Visage. But really, it's that Helm of the Overlord they're looking to hit at a decent time to maybe think about taking this tier 2 tower. I don't think they can pressure it until they get that item. Mid lane, Lelouch should be chilling. They're going to be able to kite the Spirit Siphon. They're really doing a good job to play the edge of the fight. You know, they don't bring Lelouch down too low, but I think this is just good signs of how Talon are being able to recognize the ways to deal with the Death Prophet.
Yeah, they just slowly poke and prod. They're not actually giving Polaris an opening to force these team fights. You mentioned Polaris being better in that 5v5. They haven't been able to
Dire's top
find those
tower
big
is
moments. They will
under
go for a smoke play now. There is a big target up top in the form of Savage here.
How do you start, though? It feels like it has to be a silence from the higher ground where Savage doesn't expect it. A curse from AU, maybe to start, but he gets the attribute shift. No one's just starting to TP in the area. Waveform.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yep. So, yike. That's no good. They're going to instantly smoke. They got to get something out of this. This is a lot of time expended.
Radiant's
KP, smoke's gonna pop. They'll toss him Lelouch. He does have the Snapfire nearby if Hyde's gonna be able to step in to get the cookie over the tree line, but Polaris will make sure they get the kill before Hyde is able to provide any assistance, and they'll also get the little familiars as well. So at least Polaris gets something out of this.
Yeah, it's something for their trouble. Not the biggest kill. It's still a good core to pick up. And that should allow them to maybe take a little bit more control. Q! Lane tag, but not Sumi. Just gets taken away.
Ooh, that's a lot of damage!
Ooh.
Alright.
On the edge. But that was, you know, Q just trying to, I don't know, force an issue. He's 200 gold away from his blink. That could be the big spike for Talon to play with here as well. Mikado, though?
Man.
Oh, they miss?
Dude, this is wild. That slight timing was crazy. They did have a sentry as well, so they didn't know that Death Prophet was setting up. Maybe they just saw Force kind of running up aggressively at the Ember Spirit, so it's like, all right, something's amok.
Yeah, and we've seen that multiple times. Lelouch's been trying to
Radiant's top
play
tower is
with that
under
silence timing on the Sleight of Fist. Mikado's been basically able to dodge out every single one. Bit of a clump up top, trying to get more objectives, but Talon this time going for the smoke play.
Extra to play with, and there's the blink. Q's not going to be with them at the moment, and the TP is also on cooldown, but it looks like they're going to be able to deter Polaris from continuing the siege.
They kind of walked through the path of the Hawk. They smoked up in the top part of the triangle, but with that clump up, Polaris probably knew something was up, using that Beastmaster vision quite nicely, and they're the ones to back off. Talon, it does feel a little bit early to kind of force out a movement with Savage in that smoke. He is just going to go back to farming, build into his Manta, into the Scotty, try to hit those timings as the Morphling. For Polaris, I mean, they're getting pretty big. You know, Natsumi's #1. With that Maelstrom, he's able to keep up and kind of eclipse Savage's farm, trade back to back. Going for the Yasha next. We're seeing a very, very early Lotus Orb next for Lelouch. No BKB necessary, just a Yule's Lotus to dispel. And could cause some issues in holding down and dealing with that regen on the Death Prophet. So it does still feel like Polaris has the upper hand when it comes down to engagements. Neither side has been able to find those big engagements, though. And I think overall, as long as Talon don't bleed out in the next, say, 10 minutes, they still have scaling. Although Q?
Almost. Xavier's trying to get whatever little farm he can find across the map. Really struggling to complete that Blink Dagger. See, just Talon really sweeping across, making sure their cores are continuing to get the farm. KP. It's actually going to go a different build. I think majority of the games I've seen, it was the Wraith Pact. He's actually not going to complete it this time. He's going for the Scepter next. So do you feel like... surely it's just for the Wyvern. They feel like this is a support that is a must-kill to start the fight.
Yeah, it allows them to scout out for the Wyvern really well. I like the damage output it provides as well. KP can go for the appropriate Talon build-up. He's already got the +8 Visage and Familiar's attack damage, plus the Ag's attack buff when you get out of it. And down the line, the +1.5 minus armor on the Visage and Familiars. It's a lot. So it makes Savage's job easier. It makes Mikado's job easier as well if you find a flank. And as you mentioned, just spotting the Wyvern from the rear is going to be massive. Still Mikado.
It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. I don't know if it's a deliberate thing. I'm going to make it out like it is from Makoto. He kind of dragged the creeps to the right side because he was worried about if anyone was going to pressure, the Tiny had to come from the left tree line and get that stun. He kind of saw him prior that he wasn't in the right trees, so kind of pathed his way to that side, and maybe that was enough to get some distance away from Xavier. I'm going to say it like it was. Of course, Makoto is a big brain player.
He is. I'm surprised that Polaris are making these moves without force. Like, I get that they're waiting for that full Humvee Overlord, but it does feel like they need a roar from a distance to at least lock in chain stun afterwards, get that burst onto Mikado. Without that Beastmaster, you're probably not finding that Ember.
John, look at how defensive the wards are. Like Radiant and Die pretty much all their wards are just on the river. They've got 5 wards out of on the map so far. They are making sure that Talon cannot invade, but it's pretty similar with Radiant. They're like, you take a look, it's just everyone's really mimicking what's going on in this game. People feel very content with finding their farm. I mean, this puts us in quite a position for the mid game. We're just building up this steam, building up all the pressure, and then it's gonna burst shortly.
Yeah, you're gonna see that pressure just let loose at some point once either side feels comfy enough. I think the defensiveness for Polaris, it's not too bad because they've got the Hawks flying about as well that can give them much more offensive vision to use. It's just that they haven't been able to build off that offense. And they've been rotating without force. It just feels like you really need that roar to catch out either the Morphling or the Ember. Force has to be around. Dominator's almost done. Maybe that's the moment where they start to group up a lot more with the Beastmaster. Get a kill. Go for an objective afterwards with their insane push and just kind of slow down the map. Because right now, despite this strong showing from Polaris, 2K lead's not the biggest in the world. Smoke out from Talon was spotted out a little bit on the edge of the Hawk. That should allow perhaps Polaris to back off, but Natsumi still hang around the tree line here.
Don't do it. Play through TPR maybe? Alright. I guess that is kind of the one nice thing here for the Juggernaut this game is that they do not have an answer to a spin TP out, and well, now Polaris, they're going to go for their own smoke. Is this just a Roche to force a fight, or do they feel like they need a pick-off? Nice scan. Beautiful scan. Talon, they're able to read this, that they're looking to invade, but they got to make their way over to the pit, because Roche just fallen pretty fast.
Yeah, doesn't feel like a great fight for Talon to take. You mentioned it earlier, but again, they lack team fight in Talon's end. They could try to get kisses, but there's no real setup for it. Talon's lineup does feel like it's geared more for maybe some counter engagement and pickoffs here. So free Aegis coming out for Polaris. Great read from them after Talon blow that smoke down. But just holding that game steady. They did have to blow the Exorcism, but they're not as reliant on it, at least not with the Helm of the Overlord fully up in the forest. They've got a little bit more presence with their creep army here.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
I like that point though, just because Talon, I think giving up Roche is a very difficult thing. Maybe first Roche is easier though, because you don't have that extra Ag Shard as well, which could be, I mean, it's plus 1400 gold, and it can be an incredible ability to help out. You're actually going to look to take the fight. Exo being on cooldown for Polaris, they're putting a lot of their attention to Xavier's fort at the moment. Wanna Kisses not going to do the trick, so Xavier's is able to reposition. Talon, they do kind of force them away from the tower though, so they will be able to secure a pretty big objective, but AU is able to fly over the cliff, finds the Winter's Curse. The cookie will not be enough to reposition. Xavius, he's trying to get the +1. The toss is there if he can close the distance onto Hyde, but he will not be able to make it fast enough. So in the end, Polaris, they lose their tier 1 tower mid, but they do get at least some way to rectify that with the kill onto KP.
Man, they're finding a lot every single time they find his Visage. The KP is losing his familiars plus his hero, so the bounty plus 200 gold every single time. Massive wins coming out for Polaris, holding steady with the lead 2k up. Savage just managed to dodge away right before Xavius comes in to check. And he does have at least the 2 ultimate orbs up, so he's got a lot more HP to play with, a lot more agi to morph into strength here, and still have a little bit of throughput. But for Talon, this is the moment where it feels like they're going to have to really take a step back. They've not been able to find fights. Your Visage isn't quite online with the Ags build up, and even then, it does feel like you're going to need a lot more on top of that. You're going to need some talent spikes here as well for KP. And Polaris just has so many more angles to take. We see the curse coming out from AU. It's been effective multiple times. We haven't even seen the roar yet from Force. Just not necessary. They just find that one pick off, and Talon's forced to go back farming.
And what do you think the call is going to be for Talon here? Do they mount a defense bottom, or do you look to maybe shove out top and potentially trade the tower, at least get a lot of damage and control the top side of the map?
Bottom tower is under attack.
I think you look to trade. You do not want to deal with the Aegis on Natsumi. The Juggernaut just way too durable. Again, nothing to deal with the spin at this moment. The Omni Slash is still a constant threat as well. And Talon just has no play as of the moment. Maybe once they have this BKB and Mikado, you feel a lot more confident and at least having the Ember take a much more forward position, try to disrupt these fights a lot more. But before that, and Polaris just has all the tools. They have so many ways of catching one hero out, forcing a bad position out of Talon. They've got the shove in, they've got the push potential, extra systems back up. You could just line up for mid and take another tier 2.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Just forcing the issue here is Polaris, recognizing Talon. They are not in a position where they're going to be able to contest these fights. They've still got a minute 40 to work with on the Aegis. What's the call going to be? High ground, that is a really difficult objective to be able to take. And yeah, it looks like they're just going to back off, maybe try and get a kill up top. As soon as they see the TP's out, their Talon instantly reacting and calling the retreat.
Back off in the nick of time. And that does prevent any further leeways here for Polaris, and the high ground threat is still not fully realized, although again they have the EXO. Talon will go for a smoke, but so will Polaris here.
They're going to see at least around about where the Death Prophet is. Beautiful read from either side. How can they enter the fight? Lelouch is a big kill if they can find it. Lotus Orb with the burst. Pretty heavy at the moment, half health to play with. They're going to make sure they don't group up. AU's in with the Winter's Curse, but Lelouch is still in trouble for the moment. Able to reposition into the river. They've kept the Death Prophet alive, and now they're going to turn their objective over to Savage, but the Morphling able to waveform down to the south. Savage going to consider about jumping back into the middle. He's got the Winter Wyvern Replicate to play with, so right-clicking from afar secures the kill into the support, but look at Polaris swarming into Talon's territory. They want to hit back. They want another kill, but Xavius will not be able to catch up. KP flies back over to the high ground, so Talon will escape, and that's a win in its own right. I mean, you force out some ultimates. They don't get a successful team fight towards the later stages of the Ages, and yeah, Talon, they don't really lose too much there, so I'd say that's a bit of a victory.
We're seeing just how durable Savage is. He comps most of that Omni Slash, he cops the Roar, still manages to get the attribute shift right in the nick of time, and with that, he's just safe. You don't quite have the damage output yet from Polaris to kind of deal with him, but you also don't have the damage on Talon to deal with Lelouch. They drag him down to less than half. Beyond that, you've got the healing from AU, you've got so much sustain coming through on the Death Prophet by virtue of the hero that you don't really have too many angles to take. The BKB from Mikado is big though, that does allow him to dance around, but it does feel like we're going to need that Ember Ags here before anything else can happen, at least for Talon. For Polaris, you kind of need to wait for those cooldowns to be back off. The Aegis is already gone to Natsumi, so as we mentioned, it's a little bit riskier to look for the high ground objectives. Tier 2s are still fairly open. You can start stripping that map away, but the response is there from Talon at least.
Just wonder how different that fight could have looked if you had the level 2 and the Mortimer Kisses. At the moment, Hyde is 11 and kind of 2/3. Maybe with that extra little bit of damage from the ultimate, could have been enough to get the kill on the Death Prophet, because I think without that and without the Scepter on Makoto, like you mentioned, that just burst potential to get rid of Lelouch is not really going to be there. And if you don't get the Winter Wyvern as well, then good luck killing like a core component on Polaris, because AU's got Blink now. So it's going to be even easier for him to position, to get the save, or even to get a big curse. And there you go. Oh, speaking about the curse, look at KP. Oh, not the familiars, back onto himself.
Yeah, they rip right through. And 200 gold as well from the familiars, going away of Savis. Every single time they find that Visage kill, it's pretty big. It starts to add up. Polaris finding the right target at the right time. Sure, it's not the Morphling, but it does feel like you still get a lot more for your trouble there than you normally would. And Talon, that timing for KP into the Ag is going to be stalled out a bit. 500 gold away. That could be the spike necessary to deal with that Winter Wyvern as we've talked about. But Talon not going to be able to get as much done as... Yeah, all the tools are still there for Polaris. And they're down to Curse. They still have Roar, which we again haven't seen too much of from Force. We saw it the one time on Savage. Still kind of clumping around, but someone's going to need to respond down mid, and Mikado will get that done for the team. Could be no. Manages to kill off the Hawk.
Double damage.
Oh. Okay. Top lane, Savage. Trying to set up on Lelouch, but he's got pretty good positioning so far. They will not be able to keep up, although Savage's waveform's still on cooldown. Xavier's not playing with a blink. Gonna be reliant on the force stuff. Does he go for a stray avalanche? Not gonna be able to catch up. Okay. So meanwhile, Makoto does go down. I was keeping tabs on top, just seeing if they were gonna get the kill. That was what, the raw plus jug? Okay.
It was, he killed off the hawk while it was diving, which was pretty neat, but yeah, the roar came out, didn't expect the Beastmaster round, just gets run down. Great punishment onto Mikoto, stalling out his own Ag's timing as well. And Talon, I mean, you have all the form in the world on Savage, but a Morphling just can't make these big plays in this situation. You have to rely on the Ember, you have to have some impact on the Visage, not quite there yet. And they might find AU at least.
Get a support out of it. Is gonna, they're at least able to get a trade across the map though on Polaris. T2 tower. So all the outer towers have now been claimed. Talon look to try and smoke up. They do have a pretty good ward at the top outpost if Polaris continue to retreat in this direction. They're actually going to smoke themselves maybe to help with their mobility. Oh, smoke on smoke. Winter Wyvern's down, so they don't have him to be able to protect the Death Prophet. They're in with the combo! And Lelouch is gone. Still, they've got to be cautious. Savage, he gets chain controlled as well. Savage, along with Lelouch, not a factor in the team fights from either side, but it looks like Natsumi, he can clean up. Chasing down KP, they'll get rid of the Visage, and Xavius, he's going to try and catch up for more talent. 3 heroes playing around with a higher ground. In goes Xavius to break the formation, tossing Hyde back into Natsumi's grasping hands. Look at him go. He's posturing like, come on, Makoto, get out of the way. This is my territory now.
Yeah, Polaris just, they drop one, but they managed to find the bigger kill. Savage this time around not able to get that attribute shift in a timely manner and is punished for it. And you are starting to see that mid-game strength that we talked about. Jug's fully online, has the Scotty ult.
Can he stay alive for long enough? The rest of the team's starting to connect, but it's a question of the control now. It might be enough. Oh my! Natsumi really starting to get the damage going. 8-1 and 4. And all they need is a couple of stuns, forced with the chain control, with the dive bomb, and that was plenty to kill off Makoto.
And that opens up the high ground. Morphling respawning a few, they wouldn't want to buy back in Mikado here. The push coming out from the Jug, the sustain from that healing ward, just more than enough to get the job done. And there's no answer here from Talon, just down to the fact their supports aren't big team fighters. They've got great pick off, they've got that blink dispose on Q, but it's not enough to hold multiple heroes down. And whenever Polaris just clump up on them, it's just way more chain stuns coming out from the Dire side here.
Cole, it's going to be to go back up the high ground. They've got some barracks. I don't know, it's going to be durable for long. KP's trying to scout out with the familiars to see the positioning from the supports. But Polaris, they'll get the melee barracks and now looking to back off. Maybe control the triangle or consider Roshan.
Got a big opening just with a melee racks down. Talon, game gets harder and harder for them as they still lack the itemization. Ags on KP is nice, but you still need Mikoto's Ags to really feel comfy, and he's still 2,000 gold away from that. Just been stalled out since picking up that BKB, and just been picked off a couple of times too many. Polaris still holding on to the triangle area, but the smoke's out from Talon here.
It's going to have to be a long wraparound into Dire's jungle, get the ward on the cliff, maybe look to play like that, because they have full control of the triangle on Polaris, so there's no way Talon can break this. And they also scout out Roche's up as well, so they do have confirmation. Nice read. They know exactly where they are. Look at the lines drawn on the map.
Got the general idea that no one's there de-shoving the waves. So Talon snuck out somewhere and not going to be able to find anything for their own trouble. And just going to go back to equilibrium. They find a free ranged Rax as well, so the mid's fully gone thanks to the micro coming in from Force. And Talon, I mean, it feels like their backs are against the wall here. They just need more items. They need more time. They need Mikoto to actually just hit the Ags and dance around him, try to dodge out all these stuns as he has before, but it's just not coming true. And the impact of KP's just been minimal. Sure, he's got the Ags, he's been scouting, but we haven't seen him burst down the backline as much. He might be able to spot this Roche, though.
What's the call? Roche is falling fast. You're going to need a way to be able to start the fight. Xavius tries to blink in, scouting some of the heroes out. They're very split for the moment. Look at the curse. Not a lot of damage, but it's really just space. That's the main thing. Savage trying to play around with the Winter Wyvern replicate. Meanwhile, KP's going down, and Talon, they're just looking to retreat. They cannot stick around to take this fight. They'll lose KP. Q's going to be killed off as well. So Polaris, with this second roast, they're in the driver's seat to be able to close out this game now.
Got a big opening to just look for that opening onto mid. Maybe go for a secondary set of racks first before going for those tier 4s. Natsumi's had a great time from the laning phase. Built up. He has the Basher on the jug, so the spin is going to be big now and keeping something like Savage down, getting the chain stuns off in the middle of these fights. And again, for Talon, we just haven't seen this Visage do too much from KP this game around, even with the Yags. His scouting's there, but he's just been a primary curse target. If not, well, even with the information, Talon doesn't have the best jump. Like, they could try for a disposed play that's going to kill off Q 100%. And just without Mikado's Ags, you don't have any way of just dancing around here. It's almost unplayable. 8-19, 12k lead. Polaris looking like they've got a really good opening to actually force this game one away from Talon. And Talon sort of crumbling. They go back to that comfort opening with Marcy and Visage, and it doesn't feel like we're getting impact from those two heroes at all just yet.
And I don't think we are going to get the impact out of the Visage as well. I think you're at this stage of the game where his net... Man, Tiny's almost got more net worth than the Visage. This is a position for Tiny that... I mean, Davis has had a very good game. Props to him, but it's just... Tiny can struggle to kind of really find that farm unless you're getting pick-off after pick-off. So, I don't know. I don't feel like we're going to get that impact from the Visage. You're mentioning Mikoto Ags has to go huge. I think Savage as well. Like, this is the Savage Morphling, keep in mind. So, it can pull something out of the hat, but it's going to be crazy here for Talon. That's a 2% probability here. 34 minutes in, so it's not looking good with this second Roche.
Yeah, man. Yags is up for Mikado. So we'll have to see if he can play to his full potential. Polaris definitely not going to make that easy. Their BKB piercing spells are starting to show its muscle here. And all Talon can do at the moment is just kind of split push with KP. He's at least shoving in top. That will leave the bottom as the angle here for Polaris, but they don't even have a creep wave there either with Savage cutting through. Only the mid kind of give them that access through the back door. Still enough time to get a lot of damage off of Natsumi though.
Wrap around. That's the call. Can't take the fight head on. Not into Natsumi. Winter Wyvern to the Death Prophet. You got to get rid of them. But you've lost the ward now. And look at this. The read. They know exactly where Talon are playing. They're going to lose another ward. So how do you take the fights without information? Snapfire's in trouble. Meanwhile, Natsumi off for the left side. A first hit bash. Morphling will be okay. But I cannot say the same about Hyde. And that's the gem dropped as well. Xavius. Oh, the toss on the bird. What? Mikoto? Can they chain control him after back? Oh, what's going on? Natsumi, these bashes is getting so goddamn lucky. It'll force out a BKB, a buyback as well. Savage is going to try and charge in, but the Raw, now with the Omni Slash, the damage might be enough. Savage is gone. No buyback on the Morphling. The cheese to drop the Polaris. Alrighty, what a game one performance. They're going to take this 36 minutes in. What a beautiful game from Dyer.
Yeah, they play spectacularly well in Polaris, and again, this team has looked revitalized since taking Force back in, having AU come in as their pause 5, having the coach in that playing position, has solidified Polaris. They had a rough